Hi there, I'm Michelle the painter from Berkshire Paint and Sip, and this is Paint and Sip at Home. Alright, so today I'm going to be painting changing leaves, and I'm going to be sipping on my iced tea here. And if you enjoy this process, I do hope that you like and subscribe to my channel, and that you also check out my Patreon page where you're going to find additional painting perks. So let's get painting and let's get sipping. Alright, so for my materials today, I'm going to be using a stretched and primed 16 by 20 inch canvas. If you're painting along with me, you can certainly switch up the size, but that's what I'll be using. I'm going to be using acrylic paint today. My colors are titanium white, fluorescent orange, burnt sienna, which I will call rust, Mars black, fire red, chrome yellow, and green oxide. And of course you can switch up those colors if you'd like to, but that's what I'll be using. For my tools today, I have a white piece of chalk that we'll use for drawing later. And then I have 3 brushes. I have a 1/2 inch wide flat bristle brush. I have a number 10 round synthetic brush, and I have a number 4 round synthetic brush. And I will refer to these as small, medium, and large as we go through the painting process. And of course, those can be switched up as well if you're painting along with me. You're probably going to want to have a cup of water for washing your brushes, as well as a paper towel for drying your brushes. And down below this video, I will be providing you with a couple of additional resources that can help you through your painting process. One of them is a link where you can purchase the same exact paint kit that I'm using, from the large canvas to the piece of chalk and all the good stuff in between. So that's down there for you. There's also a link where you can download a free image of the final painting. So you can print that and use it as visual reference as you go through the painting process. And there's also written step-by-step instructions down there for you as well. And that's all we're going to need today. Alright, so what we're going to do for the first step is we're going to be painting the entire canvas with black paint. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush, and you can use any paint stroke that you want. I'm going to be using a left to right brush stroke. You could certainly use a crisscross, you could use a circle, whatever is going to give you a nice full coverage on your canvas. And I have had several people ask me when I do these black backgrounds like this why I don't start with a black canvas, because you can buy canvases that are already black to start, and then that of course it kind of seemingly would shorten your painting process. But what they are coated with is like a black primer, which is not intended to be the final coat of the painting. So you could certainly start with a pre-primed black canvas, but you will want to make sure that you put either a protective coat over it or do another layer of paint on top of it. Similar as the white canvas. You never want to leave your white canvas without paint in certain areas, because the primer is just meant to be a cohesion type of layer that allows the paint to stick to the canvas. It's not intended for, it's not protected against things like UV rays, or it's not, it can stain very easily. So you want to make sure that if you are working with a white or black canvas, that you do cover it with some sort of protection and don't just leave that canvas raw underneath. And again, I'm just using a left to right brush stroke to get my black paint on here. Black is usually a pretty good coverage, but you may find that you have little spots that show the brush marks after this first layer. So if after you are all done with this first layer, you want to let it dry and see if there's any spots that you want to put a second coat on. And then if there are, you just go right ahead and put a second coat in those areas. And then we are going to be utilizing our piece of chalk for the next step. So once you've got your first layer or the background done with the black paint, you can put this large brush away wherever you'd like to. Take out your piece of chalk and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we're gonna draw an outline for our leaves and the string and the give ourselves some markers for the clothespins. We're going to use our chalk, but I do want to forewarn you that before you start this step that you make sure that your canvas is dry. So this is that time where you get to take that extra long break if you'd like to. Or you can find some kind of fun fanning method to get it drier. You can do as I did and just whip out your blow dryer and get it dry that way. So how we're going to do this is I'm going to give you a couple of markers. We'll connect those markers for our string, and then I'll explain to you how I'm going to draw my leaves, and you can of course follow after that. So on the right hand side, I'm going to come down about 1.5 inches to 2 inches and give myself a little bit of a marker. And then on the left hand side, I'm coming down about 3 to 4 inches on the left hand side. I'm going to connect these with a little bit of a curved type of line. It doesn't have to be like a super scoop type of line. I'm actually not going to go much farther, much lower than this marker in through here. So just down just a little bit and then just kind of scoop myself back up to meet this one. Then I'm going to make my markers for my clothespins. I'm really just making markers so I have an understanding of where I want my leaf stems to go. So as I draw the outline for my leaves, I'll have an area where I know that they're going to end up. So I'm going to have my clothespins about 3 inches tall with maybe about 1 inch below here and 2 inches above there. I'm going to have them kind of all in different kinds of directions, and I'm going to have 9 of them, but you could certainly do less or more, depends on how many leaves that you'd like to have. So I'm going to do my first one kind of in the center of my canvas. I'm going to go about 1 inch below and then maybe about 2 inches above, and that's going to give me a little bit of an angle for that first one. And again, I'm not terribly concerned about the width of it. I just want to give myself a marker. So once I have that first one down, you can take your brush or any other kind of utensil that you can utilize as a ruler, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, this is about this tall. I think I actually want it to be just a little bit longer. I want to go for about 3 inches, and I think that's good right about there. So now once you've got the idea of how long that one is, then you can make all the others the same length. So I can just take my stick, and I know that I want 4 more on this side and 4 more on this side. So I can just kind of mark 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I can utilize my measuring tool to just kind of give me an idea of where I want these to go. And about the same height for each one. So that's about like that. Maybe this one is more straight up like this. And this just kind of gives me a good gauge, so I have them similar in height. And maybe this one goes off the canvas a little bit, so maybe this one goes off like that. And then of course you can just kind of connect them. So now that you've got the right height to them, or a similar height, you can connect them. If this one's going off the canvas, of course that one doesn't have to be the full height. And then you just go right ahead and do the same for this side, just making myself some markers. Maybe this one is over like this a little bit more. Maybe this one is like this. And again, I'm just using this as a guide so I have them similar in height. You could certainly use a ruler if you wanted to, but I'm just kind of utilizing the tools that I have at hand without making any kind of fancy things. And of course I missed that marker, but that's okay, I got the right length. Chalk is beautiful, you can just erase it with a little bit of water. So that gives me my idea of where I want the leaves to be. I'm going to have them all stacked upon one another. The one that is going to be on the outside closest to us is going to be over to the right, and all the other ones are going to lay behind it. So I'm going to start over on the right and build my way to the left. So the style of leaf that I've chosen is a very simple, almost like teardrop type of shape for the leaf. So I'm going to bring it maybe a little bit of ways from wherever that clothespin is. And for me, I'm going to have this one kind of coming over pretty close to here, and then I'm just going to bring it down and in through maybe about 3 or 4 inches away from the bottom of my canvas. And of course, yours can certainly be different sizes or shapes than mine. It's totally up to you. As I go into this one, in through here, perhaps this, they're all from here on out going to be resting behind the one that they sit next to. So I'm going to maybe put this one over in this direction. I think this one I'm going to have coming down and behind this one over here with a little pointy tip, something like that. My next one over here, and again, my stem will reach or curve into the clothespin that's going to be above it. So this one, I think we're just going to see a little bit of it in through here, and maybe this one comes down, I don't know, maybe somewhere in through here. And of course, once you've got this on here, you can certainly reshape it. That's the beautiful part about using chalk, is you get to just kind of fiddle with it and get them to be in whatever kind of shape that you want. You can certainly get them to be a little bit more ripply around the edges if you wanted to. This one over here, I think I'm going to have this one kind of coming a little bit in through there, and then maybe this one's going to come over like this and scoop down far over here. And you can see I'm just kind of freestyling these bottoms so they don't all look exactly the same. Maybe this one's going to be held right close to the clothespin, something like this, coming over in this direction, and then maybe this one kind of comes more straight down like this. And you can see they're all pretty similar in shape, but different sizes. Some are bigger, some are smaller. They've got different kind of angles to how they're coming at the bottom. And they will look fantastic as natural looking leaves once we get all of the detail on them. But right now, just kind of getting myself to give a uneven type of bottom to them, having given them all a little bit of their own unique shape to it. I think this one I'm going to have kind of coming down partially down that one, and then maybe this is going to come down a little bit farther than this one. And then I think I'm going to have one big huge one kind of off this side over here. It's going to be my big dark green one over here. So I'm going to have this one occupy a good amount of space in through there. And then we are going to be utilizing our small, actually let's use our medium brush for the next step. So you can put your chalk away, take out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to draw our string and our first layer for our clothespins. So I'm going to be using my medium brush. The colors I'm using are black, white, and rust. And how I'm going to do this is I'm going to draw my line for my string first, and then I will put my clothespins on top. And we're going to be doing kind of wet on wet. If the clothespin or if the string is still wet when we go to do the clothespins, it's okay. I planned for that. So I'm going to be putting white and black on my brush at the same time. So I have kind of equal parts of white and black, and I'm really just going to be drawing a line. Now, I do want to forewarn you that if your hand goes through your chalk, as mine is going to, and you pull your chalk out by accident, it's okay. You can always just wash it away with a little bit of water, or you can paint it back black, because we have a great background for making corrections. So if you see my hand go through my chalk, don't worry, I'll correct it later. But I'm just gonna start at one end. And when I do a continual line like this, I like to keep my eye on the prize, which is the end of it or where I'm headed. So as I'm doing this, I'm gonna just kind of push my brush. I know that I'm feeling myself running out of paint, so I'm just gonna reload with my white and black, and I'm using both of these colors so I can get some light spots and some dark spots within my rope, so it looks like maybe there's a light source in the area or the room, or maybe this rope has a little bit of dimension to it. So you can certainly make yours as light or as dark as you want to. You could have little kind of marks on it to make it look like it's a piece of twine or something, so that will be totally up to you. So now I'm just going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to be utilizing rust or burnt sienna to create my clothespins. So I'm going to be doing just a rectangle type of mark. I'm going to be, I would say, about an inch or so wide. I'm using a pretty wide flat brush. or round brush. So this allows me, if I push it flat onto the canvas, it gets a pretty wide line. So I don't need to do much more than just kind of push my brush to get it pretty wide. And I'm going to do whatever angle the clothespin is at, that's the angle that I'll put the top and bottom mark at. So I'm going to just kind of follow my my chalk mark like that, keeping it maybe about 1/2 inch to 1 inch wide, and then I'll clean up the bottom and the top to make them squared off at a similar angle to, or an angle that makes sense based on the way that I have it tipped. And then you can sit and clean up your lines as much as you want. If you still see the rope underneath, that's okay, because this is just the first step to our clothespins. We will definitely have time to clean up or to hide that line in a future step, so don't worry about that not being perfect. I'm just slowing down a little bit as I do that top and the bottom so I can kind of square them off. And again, I'm just kind of repeating this same step, pushing my brush pretty darn hard, and I'm kind of pushing it as hard as I can, which also will give me a uniform width to the clothespins. So if you only press it, you know, half the firmness on one and the full firmness on the other, you'll get a line that is wider on one and less wide on the other. So by pushing it kind of as far as I can, I know that's about as wide as it can get, and then it will be pretty similar on all of them. So it's just a kind of a quick way to get something to be uniform looking without having to do too much work to it. And of course, I'm not going for photorealism here, so that always takes out the pressure of making things look perfect too. So I'm going to just kind of repeat this on all of them, and I will on a couple of them based on the angle that they're at. I might put a little bit of a piece so we can, to give it a little bit more of a dimensional element, maybe a little piece coming out the side. But I'm going to just first start by getting just the front piece of wood to be evident, and then if I feel that there's any that are at enough of a side angle where I might be able to see a little sliver of the back piece of the clothespin, I can certainly put in a little tiny sliver, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that in a second. I just want to make sure I got these last couple with their shape on them that I want. So again, really I'm just doing long rectangles that are about 3 inches in length, except for the ones that go off the side of my canvas, and those ones are going to be shorter. And then once I've got this done, I just am going to make a decision if there's any that I want to add a little side piece to. And this one's going to probably be a little bit wider than I had expected, but that's all right. So I'm thinking maybe definitely this one's got a little side piece to it, or the back piece. So I'm just going to kind of go up towards the top of it and give myself a little sliver of what would be the back piece. And I'm just using the tip of my brush and hardly any paint. So this is going to end up looking a little bit darker in the background, and maybe this one's got a little tiny sliver. And again, this is just to give it a little bit of an illusion that there is, you know, a side piece or a back piece to this to the clothespin. And maybe this one's got it over here, and you do it to all of them or just some of them, depending on, you make the determination if you want it to be evident on a lot of them. I'm leaving a little space between that back piece and the front piece, just again to give it a little bit of an illusion. And we will be using the same brush for the next step. So once you've got your clothespins, the first layer of them all nice and done, you can wash and dry this medium brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're doing the first layer of our green leaves. So this is going to be the leaves on the left-hand side. I'm going to be using my medium brush, and the colors I'm using are black, green, yellow, and maybe a little bit of white, but if I use white, I'll let you know. So what my leaves are doing is they're progressively going from dark green all the way to a dark red, and I'm going to utilize my colors on my palette to kind of make that happen. So I have my base colors that I'm going to be using, and each little section we're going to transition from green's going to go into yellow, yellow's going to go into orange, and orange is going to go into red. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that. So I'm going to start, these first three are going to be, I'll call them my green ones. So I'm going to have 3 shades of green. So I'm starting with my green oxide, and my dark shade of green, I'm going to add a little bit of black to some of my green. So this will be my dark green color. I really want these 3 shades of green to look vastly different from each other, or as different as I can get them on my palette. So once I've got that dark green, I also know that these colors will get darker as they dry on my canvas. So I'm mentally prepared for that. I just want you guys to be mentally prepared for that as well, because they're going to look pretty vibrant when you put them on initially, and then they're going to dry darker. And I've planned for that. That's going to build these leaves in a very natural way. So I've got my dark green. Let me just make myself a little bit more of that. Once I've got my dark green going on, I am going to wash my brush, because I want to make myself a light green also, and I don't want any of that black on my brush. So I'm washing and drying my brush. For my light green, I'm going to be utilizing my yellow and green. So I want to save a lot of this yellow for later. So I'm just going to take a little bit of yellow, put it in my green spot here. And then, I want you to make sure you guys can see this well. I'm really making this very light, or very yellowy green, almost on the shade of like a lime green kind of color. So that's going to be my light green that I'm going to use. So I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm starting from the left. Those are going to be my 3 shades of green. I've got my dark green. I washed and dried my brush. I'm just coloring in this far left one. I'm going to make sure that I go all the way and cover up my chalk mark. And on this left one, your brush stroke doesn't really matter too much, because it's going to be that I know that this dark green is going to dry pretty darn dark, and you're not going to really be able to see much of the detail. But what I'm going to do on the rest of them is I will be using a brush stroke in the direction that I feel those veins will be going. So you'll see I'll be using a directional brush stroke on the rest. When I get to the bottom of each leaf, I'm going to pull out these little tiny uneven, almost little spikes at the edge, just to give these leaves a little bit more information and some good details on the edges. Between each leaf, I'm washing and drying my brush, so that way I have a clean brush. Oh, I noticed that I just missed the stem on this. You want to make sure that you put the stem on during this process. I just picked up more of my dark green. So I'm going to have this, every time you do that leaf, you want to make sure that you connect it to your clothespin. So I'm just going to make sure that I've got this coming in here, and maybe this sticks out the corner over here. And of course, if you make it too big or too small, you can always adjust it, but I think that's what I'm going to do on this one. And of course, we've got many layers to go, so if you can see through it right now, don't worry about it. So again, just washing and drying my brush, going for this one in through here with my medium green, which is just the green oxide. So this is the color that I didn't make any alteration to. This is the one that we just used kind of right out of the bottle. And as I go towards the edges, I will add that bit of detail to them, but right now I'm just kind of getting the center area on there. Your previous color will probably be wet. Don't worry about that. Just kind of go right over it. Just bring these little edges out so you've got a little bit of this a rippled kind of look to it. And then you can do the same, bringing that all the way down to the bottom, giving yourself a little kick out at that little cute part at the bottom. Give yourself the stem. So I'm thinking this stem is going to come in behind here and maybe wrap around in through here. These stems can be long, they can have curls to them. Just have fun with it. That's going to hide behind there. Then I'm going to wash and dry my brush and go on to the next one, which is going to be that light lemon kind of lime. I always get my lemons and my limes confused. So it's lime green, not lemon green. So, because lemons aren't green, I don't think. So there's my lime green. So just kind of getting the base coat on here like this, going down that center, and then I'm just gonna pull it out in what I'm gonna call a directional kind of brush stroke. And you'll see, because you can see that black evident underneath it, it will start to give us the dimension, or the, you know, those almost vein type looks to these leaves. And again, as I get towards these edges where the other leaf is, I'm going to pull it out and just kind of overlap it a little bit with that that little ruffled edge. Make sure I go all the way up to the top, give myself a stem. I think I'm going to have this stem coming out in this direction, something like that. And my chalk over here, I definitely will get rid of at some point when I feel that I'm ready to, but right now I'm just gonna kind of leave it. And then we're gonna wash and dry this brush in preparation for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we're doing the first layer to our yellow and orange leaves. So that's gonna be the next 3 leaves. So I'm gonna be using my medium brush. I'm gonna be using yellow, orange, white, and maybe a little bit of red. I haven't decided yet. So how I'm going to do this is I'm going to do, this one is definitely going to be yellow. This one, I think I'm going to do a yellow orangey mix, and then this one will be orange, and if I feel I want to add a little red, I will. And the reason why I'm kind of like wishy-washy about it is because I really want them, again, to look distinctly different. So as I'm going through this pre-mixing process of my paint, I want to make sure that, you know, I get it into the color that I want, so I might adjust it a little bit. So I know that my chrome yellow is very translucent. So if I was to just put it right on my canvas, it's going to dry pretty almost greenish because of the black background. So I'm going to add a touch of white to my yellow in order to make it less translucent, and it will be more vibrant and more yellow on that canvas. So that way it will not be as see-through. We're going to be doing multiple layers, but this at least helps me to get it to be thicker looking and doesn't take as long to do the painting process. So I'm not changing the color all too much, just adding a little bit of white to it. So for my orange, here's my fluorescent orange. I'm actually going to use my dirty brush that has a little bit of that yellow and white, and I'm going to add a little bit more yellow to some of this orange. So you can see here I'm getting a little bit more of a yellowy orange than that is, because again, I want to make sure that the transition to the red is really substantial. So that's going to be my orange kind of color. And I'm going to try and use just that straight fluorescent orange for the third one. And if I feel it's not going to, when it gets on the canvas, if it's not a transition enough, I'll add a little bit of red to it. So I'm going to wash and dry my brush. And I'm going to start with the one all the way to the left, which is going to be my yellow. So I'm just going to pick up some of my yellow, make sure that I've got a good coverage on here. And again, I know that I have a black background, so it will definitely show some of that background underneath the color, which I'm, again, planned for and I'm totally good with. And I will embrace it because I know that that's going to add a lot of dimensional element to this particular leaf. You can already see it just by using this brush stroke. I'm getting what appears to be bumps or veins in my leaf. And then as I come towards this edge, I'm going to get some of these little edges to pop out a little bit to give me that little rippled edge that I am so desiring, and then just bringing it all the way out in through here. Going to do my little stem. I think I'm going to have this one kind of coming up in through here and maybe just scooting up all the way up in through here. I like the yellow, so hopefully that'll be a nice pop of color up in through there. Bringing it all the way to my chalk mark, and then making sure I bring it all the way over here. Going to wash and dry my brush. Pick up some of that light orange that we made. So this is going to be my light orange, bringing this all the way to that other leaf over here on the right hand side, and then just going to bring it all the way to the edges of the leaf that we outlined with the chalk. So again, using this kind of directional brushstroke from where I feel the center of the leaf is going to be, that's where I start to pull it in kind of like a curved manner to give it that the illusion of the direction of where the veins are going to be. And then I'm just going to pull this out a little bit on the edges, giving it that little jagged look along the edges, bringing it out in through here as well, making sure I go ahead and do that stem too. So I think I'm going to have this stem maybe coming out over in through here, give this one a lot of fun movement, and then come and poking its head over out in through here. And of course you could certainly use a smaller brush for these stems, but I want mine to look nice and substantial, so I'm using this bigger brush to accomplish that. And again, don't worry about the streakiness that this paint may be showing right now, because when we add those other layers, that's going to help us. Then I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going in for my orange leaf. So this will be my fluorescent orange that I'm using. So I'm just using that straight fluorescent orange as my base color here. I'm going to bring it all the way to the edge, making sure that I've got a good coverage. But again, I know that this paint is really translucent, but that's my MO here. That's how I'm going to build this in a nice natural way. And then just going to bring it towards those edges, just overlapping that the chalk line or chalk mark that I gave it initially, bringing it and overlapping this other leaf that is sitting next to it. And of course, you're probably going to be able to see through the edges as it's crossing over, which is excellent. And then I'm going to go ahead and give it the stem that it needs. So this stem coming up top, I think I'm going to have, this one's going to be a nice big one in through here. We're going to curve this maybe up in through here, and then up in through here. And then we are going to be utilizing this same brush for the next step. So once you've got the base coat for these 3 leaves on, you can wash and dry this medium brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're doing the first layer of our red leaves. So medium brush colors are red, black, and orange. So how I'm going to do this, I've got red is going to be the middle one. My far one to the right is going to be dark red. So I'm going to take some of my red and mix it with just a touch of black. So you hardly need any black at all. That's why I just put it on the corner of my black section here, so I can just mix in just a teeny tiny bit. It will dry a lot darker, especially since we are on top of black. So I know that, I mean, I guess I could have used the rust color, but I want it to be more of like a maroon color, so that's why I'm going with red and black to get that in there. So that's going to be my dark red, and again, it will dry much darker, so don't worry about it being a ton different than your red. And then I'm going to make a lighter red, so I'm washing and drying my brush. And so from this, so dark red, red, and then this one I'm going to do a combination of my orange and my red, so that'll give me a shade in between the two of those. So I'm going to take some of my orange and mix it with just a tiny bit of my red. I don't need much, but I want enough to make it look different than the original orange, as well as different than the red. So you want to make sure that you've got a good balance between the two. And if it doesn't turn out way different, it's okay, because when we go to do the highlights and the shadows on the on that particular leaf, that will make it look different. So don't worry if it's not totally super different at this point. Know that when we go to add those highlights and shadows, it will be. So I'm using my combination of my red and my and my orange right now to get this color on in through here. And then again, just kind of going all the way to the edges, making sure that I've got a little overlap in through here. And I can see the difference. It's a little different, not a ton, but enough to make me happy, and enough so when I do go to add those highlights and shadows, I will be able to get it to look a lot different. And then I need to add my little stem. So I think I need my stem to meet this one in through here. So we're gonna go this way and then maybe have it come out over and through here. And again, you could certainly have your stems going in any which direction that you want. Just have fun with it. And then now that I've got that one on there, I'm going to definitely wash and dry my brush, because I want this next one to look, you know, more red. I don't really want it to have any of that orangey tone that's on my brush. So I'm gonna just wash and dry my brush. And I'm going to pick up just red paint. And again, this is gonna be this one in through here. And again, if it's not dark or different enough for you, those shadows and highlights will help to make it do that. And you can also, in the end, we can add little speckly marks onto the leaves, because leaves don't have to be a solid color. You can certainly add all kinds of different information onto them. So know that we've got plenty of steps to make these colors look different if you weren't able to achieve enough or as great of a transition in the colors as you wanted to. And then I'm going to just get these little ends to pop out a bit in through here, making sure that I've got enough of my red on here, getting this one's gonna come out underneath this other one a little bit, so that's fun. Gonna do my my stem here, so just picking up some more of my red. I think I'm gonna have this stem kind of coming over in this direction, so like that. And this is gonna, I think I'm gonna put this one way up in through here, give us a little pop of color up in that top part of the canvas. And then for my next one, again, I'm washing and drying my brush because I don't want to convolute that base coat. And I'm going to pick up some of my dark red, and this is going to be this one over in through here. And again, this will turn much darker as it dries. And if you feel like you want it to go darker now, you can even add a bit of black to the equation. But again, you'll be surprised at how dark this shade will get as it dries with that black underneath it. And I'm bringing it right up to the edge and giving it that little jagged edge as it's meeting the other one. This one's going to overlap. And this one I'm going to have my stem kind of down this center. So this one I'm going to bring my brush stroke in a little bit different of a direction on this right hand side. And then just making sure I've got these little jagged edges in through here, and I'll give myself a stem in a second here. So just making sure I've got these in the direction that I want them. And then my stem is gonna come up. I'm gonna have this one kind of curled around in through here. And then I think I'm gonna have this one maybe just go right along the edge in through there or something like that. Something like that works. And then we are going to be utilizing our small brush for the next step. So once you've got your base coat for your beautiful colorful leaves on here, you can put the medium brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what I'm gonna do for the next step is I'm gonna finish my clothespins. I'm gonna be using my small brush. The colors I'm using are black, white, rust, and yellow. And how I'm gonna do this is I'm gonna put a lighter color on this exterior, and I'm going to be using a really loose kind of sketcherly brush stroke to make it look almost like wood. And then I might put a little highlight on the tips back on those pieces that are on the other side. And then I'll come back in and put a little metal piece coming across the front of them. So I'm going to do the exterior wood coat first. So I'm definitely going to be using rust, but I also want to use a lighter version of wood. So what I can do is I can take my rust yellow and a bit of white and make myself like a light tan color. And the reason why I'm using yellow in this mixture is because if I was to just do it with rust and white, it would end up being pretty pink on me, and I'm not really sold on it being super pink, so I'm almost going for like a light, like a blonde kind of look to it. So just a light tan is what I'm going for. Once I've achieved that color, I'm going to be utilizing that plus rust and white at giving me this light wood tone. So I can clean up my edges. I can bring it all the way. I don't want to cover up 100% the rust color that I had underneath there, but you can certainly add to it. Like I just picked up a little bit of rust in order to get it to blend in a little bit. You could certainly utilize a darker tone. It's totally up to you, but I'm just going for a light kind of wood grain. And then with the remnants on my brush, if I do have a little piece sticking out the back, I can put just a little bit of a highlight on the edge, and that'll get it so the viewer can see it a little bit more. And you could put a little bit more white on your brush. If you want the top to have a little bit more highlight, you could certainly add a little bit of white to your brush, and that would give you the illusion of a little bit of a highlight on it as well. So I'm going to follow that step for all of them. I'm just put the tan color on my brush, get this to give myself a lighter wood type of look to the whole clothespin. This allows me the opportunity to clean up the edges of it and to make it more visible, to make it less see-through. So this step really helps to provide that finished look to it. Once I've got it all on here, I can use the remnants on my brush to give myself a little bit of a highlight on this back piece. If I had a little back piece there, I could use a little bit of white to give myself a little highlight on the top, and then I can just repeat that step for all of them. So I'm just going to bring that tan color, give myself some streaks going down this piece of wood, making sure my edges are as clean as I want them to be, but again, they don't have to be perfect. And some of your clothespins can be lighter or darker than others. You certainly can make that determination all on your own. And if you go outside the lines like I just did, it's an easy correction with black paint on your, when you get done with it. And so that's a beautiful part about this background is we definitely, oh, this one looks pretty long. We definitely have a lot of room for cleaning up around the edges with that black background. Oh, it's such a fun background to work with because it provides a lot of margin for error. As you're going through the process, it's like, oops, I went outside the lines. Oh, no problem, I can fix that because it's a nice flat color and you can certainly just kind of work with it in that way. Like I'll utilize that thought of cleaning up my edges to get rid of my chalk marks too. If I can't, sometimes the chalk might, you can erase it with water, but sometimes it does end up being a little grayish, even with the cleanup of water. So you can utilize just a little bit of black when you're done just to get it to fully go away. And then I'm gonna move on over here, and it's great because these don't have to all look exactly the same. One can be lighter or darker than the other. You can certainly utilize your own visual preference to how light or how dark you want the color of your wood to be. Maybe you want yours to be blue. You could certainly paint your clothespins any color you want. You could have purple clothespins, you could have blue clothespins. So any color you want is totally fine. That's going to be a preference on your part. Just kind of cleaning up these edges here, picking up a little bit maybe of my burnt sienna to get this to go in. And you do want to try and make sure that you cover up that rope or that string from behind. So as you're going through this process, if you have the evidence of that string behind there, just kind of concentrate on getting that to be disguised, because otherwise your clothespins will look see-through, and I don't think that would naturally happen. I don't know if there's see-through clothespins out there. Maybe there is in some fancy clothesline kind of world, but I'm just making sure I've got these as colored in as I want. And then once I've got them colored in, I'm going to add a little piece of metal that is the part that kind of like opens and closes them. And I'm drawing a blank as to what that would what that would be called, but it's just a little clasp, metal clasp part that we'll put on. And I'm going to do that with this small brush, and it's going to be a pretty simple process that we'll do. Just want to get these finished up here and digging them being all kinds of different shades here. And of course you could spend much more time on yours than I am. I'm just kind of getting the color on here, making sure I go all the way to my edges, and then I'm hiding that the evidence of the rope behind it. And then if I have the little piece, I can just kind of highlight the edges of it. So I'm gonna wash and dry my brush in a second here. Let me just lighten up this little corner here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a little clasp part on. So the only thing I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna start with a gray color. So I'm just gonna mix a little bit of black and white. So we've got black and white. Doesn't have to be a fancy gray color, just any gray color will work. And I'm gonna put it I'm gonna put a horizontal line at the same angle as the top and the bottom, about an inch away from the bottom. So I'm gonna put a horizontal line like this, and then I'm gonna put 2 vertical lines on the exterior of that clothespin about an inch. So it's about an inch, and an inch. So I'm about an inch up. I do it at the same angle as the top and the bottom. And then I'm going to do a little exterior line like that. I'm going to go ahead and do that to all of them about an inch. Go up about an inch, and then I'm going to quickly put a highlight and a shadow on them in a second here. Just make sure that I've got all of them executed like this. Go into this one, and you can see that I am not using a ruler, so mine are clearly gonna look a little freehand, which is great. That just adds to the authenticity of the painting. Gonna go over here, just got a couple more, gonna go across, bring it up a little bit, and then just kind of repeating this step, keeping that horizontal line at a similar angle to the top and the bottom of that clothespin, like this. And then I will, once I've got this done, I'm going to just wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to put a little shadow and a highlight. So I wash and dry my brush. The shadow is going to go underneath this this part right in through here. So just a little black shadow. You can put a little one on the right on the rope if you wanted to. Little black shadow like this. This one I don't think would have one on the left or the right, the shadow part, because it's kind of straight onto us. Got a little shadow here, a little shadow here. Maybe this one get a little bit on the side. This one's got it here. Maybe, I don't think that would have there, but you could put it on the side if you wanted to. And then I've got a little one here, here. That was a big one. My brush got a little away from me there. Little one here, and then here, and then I'm gonna wash and dry my brush and put a little highlight on that metal piece. So just a little white, and I'm just gonna do a little tiny streak of white. Maybe a little more paint on my brush would help. Just a little swipe. I don't want to take away all that gray, so I'm just using the tip of my brush. A little quick swipe will add that bit of a shine. And then we are going to be utilizing our medium brush for the next step. So once you've got these clothespins all nice and finished, you can put this small brush away wherever you'd like to. You're going to take out your medium brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're adding shadows, and I'll call them veins, to our leaves. So really, I'm going to use my medium brush, and I'm going to use all 9 of these colors plus black. So what I'm going to in essence do is I'm going to be using, on this leaf, I'll use black plus whatever I used for the original color. And I'm going to be using black plus whatever I used for original color, and I'm going to be doing that through the entire process. I'm starting from the left and working my way to the right. I will be washing my brush between each color. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of black paint. I'm assuming my highlight is somewhere maybe over on the top right somewhere, so it's going to cast a shadow from each one of these leaves onto the leaf next to it. So I have a little bit of black paint on my brush, and I'm just wiggling my brush just a little bit. Underneath here where it meets the other leaf, something like this. Once I've got it in there, I just kind of blend it out a little bit into the leaf. Then if you have lots of black on your brush, just wipe it off on your paper towel, pick up some of that original dark green and just get it to blend in a little bit more. And then you can pick up a touch of the black plus a little bit of your green. And this is where you're going to give the illusion of the veins. So I've got the stem that kind of goes down the center, and then I've got just the essence of some faint veins, which would just be dark marks coming out the left and the right from that center part of the leaf. So I've just got a little bit of black and the dark green. So I'm not going overboard, just a little bit. And if you bump into your next leaf, it's okay. And if you do too much, don't worry about it, because we will have the opportunity to make it lighter when we go in to do the highlights. And you can even put a little bit darkness down that center if you want to. Then I'm going to wash and dry my brush. And I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of black paint, and just a real little bit. I don't need a lot at all, just a little tiny bit. And then again, I'm just going to kind of wiggle it a little bit right into that crevice where those two leaves meet, which is going to accentuate the edges of that of the other leaf that it sits next to. And if you needed to, you could pick up, you know, that original green. But I'm feeling like I'm getting it to blend pretty well without having to pick that up. But now I'm going to add my shadow or my veins and my stem. So I'm picking up some of that green oxide plus a little bit of black. So this is the color that I started with originally. I'm imagining where this center stem would kind of go. So it would be in through here, and maybe I would have it coming something like this, and then just kind of meeting the tip in through there. And then I'm just going to faintly give a couple of little veins coming out. You don't have to do anything drastic, anything dramatic, just kind of giving the little essence of a couple of veins coming out here and there, kind of in that curved direction of the leaf itself. Then I'm washing and drying my brush, picking up a little black so I can add this shadow. And again, I'm just kind of using my brush and wiggling it just a little bit right in that crevice where those two meet. If you wanted it to look like it was farther away, like if the leaf was pulled out a little bit, you could make that shadow come out a little bit further. And then I'm going to get it to blend into the leaf itself. So I just, my paint is working out pretty well right now without having to pick up the original color. But if you needed to pick up the original color, you could certainly do that. Now, to get the veins and that center stem on there, I'm going to pick up the original color, which was my yellow green. So yellow green or lime green plus a tiny bit of black on my brush. And this is going to give me that center kind of stem in through here. And then if I want, I can add a couple of little veins coming off the side. And again, I'm not doing much when it comes to these veins. I don't want it to overpower it. I'm really just giving a subtle kind of look to it. But if you wanted to, you could certainly make yours really dramatic and really have a bunch of detail to it. But I'm just going for a nice subtle look in through there. Washing and drying my brush, going on to the next one, which is going to be my yellow one. So I'm going to start with just a little bit of black, and I'm just repeating that step, pushing it in, wiggling it a little right into here. And then I'm just going to, this one I am definitely going to wipe my brush off and pick up a little bit of yellow because I want this to blend in really well. and I know how dramatic that black is. So I'm just going to kind of get it to spread out a little bit with that original yellow color, making sure it is making my eye happy, and that to me looks pretty good. So now I'm going to pick up a little bit of my yellow plus black, so a little bit of black plus that yellow. This is going to give me my stem going down the middle, and of course I'm giving it a little bit of a wave too. And then I'm going to go ahead and give myself a couple of little veins coming out here and there. And you can see I'm using a very sketcherly type of brush stroke. I don't want it to be super firm. I want it to really look nice and natural. So I'm getting it to blend out and giving these little veins coming in here and there. And of course, they also are kind of enhancing the little dark marks that we had originally, so you can certainly play with that all you want. Maybe a couple more little veins coming out in through here. Yeah, there we go. So then wash and dry my brush, moving on to the next one, which is going to be my yellow-orange color. So that was this one that we mixed. We mixed the yellow and the orange to get a yellow-orange color. And oops, I just put the yellow-orange on my brush first instead of the black. Wash and drying, starting with black paint. And I'm going to do my shadow in through here. So again, just I put black on my brush, and I'm just wiggling right in that corner to give myself those rigid edges. And then I'm going to get it to blend out into the orange. So just getting that on there. Looks like I've got a lot of black on my painting, so I'm going to wash my brush and pick up some of that yellow-orange just to make sure that this blends in pretty nice in through here so it's not too much of a shadow. Yeah, that works well. And then I'm going to pick up both that yellow-orange plus a touch of black and just repeating that step of giving myself that kind of center stem part, and then maybe a couple of strategically placed little veins coming out the sides, but again, nothing major, just a couple here and there to give you the authentic look of the leaf with the veins coming out. And you can, of course, if you see part of the other side, you can certainly add some on the other side as well. And then we've just got a couple more of these leaves to go over here. I just added a bit more orange to get these to go a little bit darker, or a little bit less vibrant. There we go, something like that. And then I've got these couple over here on the right. Sometimes my brush won't stop moving. I have to make it stop moving to go on to the next one. Otherwise we'd be here all day. So I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of black paint. And again, you can see each one of these leaves, I'm just following the same order of steps. So it makes it easy on my brain to kind of formulate a process or an order to painting, especially when you're painting so many of the same, seemingly the same objects within the painting. If you can kind of get yourself in that order of, okay, well, I'm going to do all my shadows now, and I've got shadows on each one of these objects, and they're all seemingly, should be coming from the same light source, so let's do them all the same way. Right now I just picked up a little bit of black plus my orange to get this stem in through here, and then I'll get a couple of little veins come in, and again, just let your brush go as carefree as it wants to. Sometimes Mother Nature, it is much more carefree than our own heads are. So allowing your brush to kind of just do its own thing and just kind of get wild and enjoy the movement of whatever your hand wants to do. Sometimes that's where you're going to come out with the most natural looking paintings. So I'm washing and drying my brush. I'm going for my orange-red color plus black, but I'm going to start with just black to give myself my little shadow in through here. So again, just taking it and wiggling it right along the edge in through here so it gets that nice deep shadow right where that leaf is meeting the other leaf, so we can get some good dimensional element to it. Picking up a little bit of my orange red to get these two to talk to one another a little bit, so it's not just a firm outline. And then I'm going to pick up some of my orange red plus a tiny bit of black in order. I don't really have much of a stem for this one that would go down the center, because to me it would come behind there. So maybe a little bit down here at the base, and then maybe just, it looks like I've already got a couple of little veins already naturally formed in this one, so we're not going to do a whole heck of a lot to that one. And then I'm going to pick up, wash and dry my brush, pick up some black paint to go ahead and do this one over in through here. So again, just manipulating or maneuvering that black paint right up into the little crevices of where these two leaves meet one another. This one I'm even going to give a little bit of a shadow underneath, right in through here, to make it look like it is in fact in front of the red one. And then I'm going to pick up some of my red paint just to make sure that this talks well together. And same thing with this one. I feel like my stem would be behind this one and maybe just come out over here, so I wouldn't really see much there. And then if I felt like I wanted to put a couple of additional little veins, I could certainly, I just picked up a little bit of black and just pull out a couple of dark streaks in through there. And then washing and drying my brush and going in for this one. This one I'm going to have a little bit more dramatic with my dark areas because it is a dark leaf. So I'm going to have, and of course I don't have a shadow being cast upon it from another leaf. So I'm actually going to have a pretty deep shadow in the center of it where I feel it would like dip in the most, where that where the stem, I guess, would be for it. So I'm putting a good amount of black right now in this center area. And then I'm going to also put a little bit of darkness in through here, as if my petal or my leaf kind of dips in through here. So I'm going to add a little bit of black in through here. And what that's also going to do, it's going to allow us to see this edge in front of here better. So it's going to allow me to give this leaf a little bit more contrast, so it will pop out in front of this one a little bit more. So I just added a bit more black to my brush. I'm going to pick up some of my dark red plus black right now to just give myself some of those evident kind of like lines or veins in through here. And then we are going to be utilizing this same brush for the next step. So once you've got your shadows on your leaves, you can wash and dry this medium brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're finishing our leaves and their stems. I'm going to be using my medium brush, and you'll probably guess that I'm going to be using all of these colors plus white, and maybe, I don't know, yeah, all of those colors plus white. So my thought process here is I definitely want a second layer or a nice full layer on all of these leaves. I want them to show that they have a little bit of form to them, so they like bump out a little bit. I want there to be like a little bit of a highlight on some of the leaf so it shows, you know, that dimensional element to it. So I can certainly just use the original color plus white, but these are autumn leaves, so they really can have a variety of other colors within them. So if I'm working on this one over here, I can certainly pull in some of this yellow as part of the highlight. If I'm working on this one, I can certainly pull in a touch of red into it to give it some little dimensional element, or I can use yellow as a highlight on here. So this is kind of a freestyle fun step where you're just really adding that life and that vibrancy into the leaves. So I'm going to start over here because this one is, you know, kind of in the dark and is not our focal leaf, and then I'll just kind of work my way to the right. So my original color was the dark green. So I can, for my highlight color, use that plus white and or any one of these kind of colors in through here. But I still want to maintain that this is its own dark leaf, so, or its darkest green. So I'm going to start with a little bit of green oxide, which is the color from here, as a little bit of a highlight. I don't want to forget about my stem up in through here, so just making sure that I add a little bit of highlight up in through there, and maybe a touch of highlight in through here, maybe a little bit down these tips, I'm going to add green oxide plus a tiny bit of white paint on my brush to get a couple of these little pieces of the tip of this leaf to pop out. And I don't necessarily want it to be white, but I utilize the white to allow me to get these lighter tones within some of the areas. So again, just using a touch of white will help you to, on the fly, add a little bit of a lightness or brightness to it. And you can certainly have fun with adding that. I'm going to put a tiny bit of more lightness up here in the stem to make sure that we can really see it a little bit up in through here. So I think that's all I'm going to do to that one. The next one here, I've got my green oxide was my base color. So I think I'm going to utilize a little bit of my lime yellow or lime green to add a bit of a highlight in through here, maybe coming down in through here. I'm not using much paint at all. I'm almost just kind of rubbing it on here in order to give these little tonal value changes within this leaf. I don't want to cover up all the little veins, but I want to give it some dimension to it. So just utilizing that color that sat next to it could certainly help to add to its texture or its form. I just picked up a little bit of white as well on my brush, a little bit of white and my green oxide right now to give a little bit more highlight up here on the top, just so we make sure that we can see this leaf. We don't want any of them to hide too much on us, so I'm just adding a little bit of this highlight, maybe coming down a little bit on these edges, like these are just peeking out just a little bit. And again, trying to keep the diversity without being too systematic in your approach. That will make it look really nice and natural as well. So if you're going to do a highlight here, don't do it all the way along the side, just kind of do it in a little selective spot, giving it a bit more brightness. So I'm probably, whereas the previous steps I was kind of washing and drying my brush in between like every color switch, here I'm not gonna, because I want these all to look like they've morphed into one another. So I'm not washing and drying my brush. I'm going to go in for this one. I'm going to start with some of my lime green. Ooh, I forgot to add a little highlight on this one back here. This little stem. Don't want to forget that one. So I started with some of that lime green, which I know is going to be, the more layers I put, the brighter it's going to be. So that even though I didn't change colors, because I am just doing another layer with it, it is making it brighter. Just added a little bit of white with the lime green on my brush to give myself a little bit more highlight within that stem portion. Again, I'm going to pick up a little bit of yellow on my brush to give myself some little yellow marks as if it's, you know, transitioning into the neighboring color of the other one. And you don't have to add it in everywhere. Just little bits and pieces here and there is going to make it look like a nice natural autumn leaf that is in its, in its transitional stage. Adding a little bit of more brightness down to this tip in through here, and that's looking pretty good to me. So I'm going to move on to the next one. So my yellow one, I'm clearly going to use yellow as my highlight color, yellow and white, but I might add a couple of pops of the orange as well into there, but just kind of getting my brightness on right now to see how full I want to, change this color or add some extra stuff to it. I'm going to go yellow and white as my little highlight color up here in the stem, maybe add a touch more white as it's coming around this corner in through here. And of course you can watch where you had originally put those little veins, and if you avoid them, that will continue to tell the story of where they are. You can put a brighter area on one side of that center stem, indicating that the light is hitting it in a different way, so you can really have fun with how how you let these pieces read out to the viewer, just as long as you've got some light spots and some dark spots. I think I am going to add a touch of orange into this one, so I just picked up my yellow orange color, and I'm just going to kind of pop a little bit in here and there just to give it that that real autumn inspired feel of a leaf that's going through its transitional period. And then maybe we'll stick a little bit more white on these tips over here to give them a little bit more edge to them, definition in their edge. That looks pretty good. And then I'm going to go ahead and move on to my next one. So of course this was the orange color that we had utilized, and of course I know that just the more layers that I use with this color, the brighter it's going to look. So I might be able to get away with just utilizing this color as the highlight for this particular leaf. But if you wanted to add any additional colors, I might add a little bit of yellow into it to give it a little bit more of a pop, especially down here on the tip. But I'm just going to utilize the orange for now to see where it takes me, and then if I want to add anything more, I gotta not forget about the little stem up in through here. Maybe add a touch of white too, so we can get a little pop of brightness in through there, maybe along these edges. And of course, letting it dry in between you adding this extra bit of information. Sometimes that helps you as the painter to build it into a more realistic way, because the paint certainly changes colors as it dries, especially when we utilize a really dark background like we have. I'm putting yellow and white on my brush right now. So the colors really change a lot when they dry. So utilizing dry time as a benefit to you during the building process really helps to make them look a little bit more realistic, because some areas you may end up adding so many more layers, some areas you might not, so that's going to be how it looks to you after it's dried, if you want to increase or add anything different. Sorry, I just added some yellow to that. That's going to be my MO on this. I'm just going to keep adding colors until it looks the way that I want it to. So this is going to be my orange as my base color, so I'm going to just use that right now as my highlight, transitioning into the area that I want to be the brightest of them all, leaving some of these dark spots that are going to give you the illusion of those veins. And I've got quite a bit of paint on my brush right now. This is the stage where I probably use the most paint on my brush to allow for, I guess you could do two different schools of thought here. You could use very little paint and just build layers in a kind of a systematic way, or you can use a whole bunch of paint like I'm using right now, which is going to give you different shades of that color as it dries. So that's another approach to use, especially if you're using transparent paint as I am. I know that the thicker it is, the less transparent it's going to be. So if I have spots where it's really thick, that will provide me with a couple of different tones of that color without even doing much to it at all. So that, or I could methodically build those layers, which would have the same effect but just take a little bit longer. So that's going to be, again, one of those decisions you get to make all on your own. I am going to put a little bit of lightness on the tip in through here. So again, just a little bit of white, and I picked up a little bit of my yellow as well to give myself a bit of a change, maybe just the white right now, to give myself just a couple of little vibrant areas over here. And of course, it doesn't have to be exactly as mine. You can certainly feel free to bend yours. So this is going to be my red orange color that we pre-mixed. So again, just utilizing that to start, and I think I'm going to probably use maybe some yellow as a, I don't want to go too yellow. I don't want it to turn too orange. So I just picked up a touch of white with my red orange color to see how this transitions into a different color. I might actually end up adding a little bit of green or something a little bit different in this one, just so we have the information that it's changing color, but again, I want these to look different from one another, so I might end up adding a little something extra into there, but I'm gonna wait to make that judgment call until after I get my red one done, because my red one might set it apart enough for me to be happy with it. So I'm just getting these little edges, making sure I've got them all the way to the edge, and then washing and drying my brush, going in for my red. So my red, again, the more layers I have on here, the more vibrant it's going to look. I'm leaving some of my veins showing in between, making sure I've got my extra vibrancy on the tips. So I've got that bunch of red that I'm using right now on my brush, and just kind of laying it in a formation where I'm leaving some of these dark spots to make them look like those are the veins, and then utilizing the thickness of the red as my highlight color. That's looking pretty good in through there. I'm going to probably add a touch of white in a second here to give myself a little bit of a highlight. So just a little bit of white on my brush in addition to that wet red is going to give me a little bit of a highlight over here on the edge. And I'm thinking it's going to work out pretty well with this color next to it, but time will tell as it dries. Putting some little bits of highlights with the white and some wet red on my brush right now, just getting these to kind of work well together. And then I'm going to move on to my dark red leaf right in through here. So again, washing and drying my brush, and I'm going to be adding my dark red. I just need to get a little bit more on my palette here. There we go. So I've got my dark red, and I'm going to be utilizing, I'm kind of just utilizing the dark red right now to make sure that I've got everywhere that I want on here to have that dark red represented. And then I'm going to pick up my dark red plus a little bit of white on my brush. You don't need a lot. The white is going to give you that lighter color. So this almost turns into like a light or a like a maroon kind of color, as opposed to like a pinky color, which is really cool. It adds that much needed diversity with the red sitting next to it. So this is going to add that that volume to this leaf in through here, and you can certainly bring some of it down towards those edges, and then of course keeping that brush stroke in the direction of where the veins or the where it comes out, that little spine or that center part. I'm going to add a whole bunch of lightness over here on this bottom side of the leaf. So again, red plus white is going to be my highlight color over in through here, and just bringing them out in this curved kind of brush stroke. And I'm going to really lighten up this tip here so we can really see it in front of the other one. So again, my dark red plus white is my highlight color that I'm going for here. And wherever you want that leaf to pop out most, that's where you're going to put the most lightness to it. So that's going to tell the viewer that that part of the leaf is in fact popping out. And when you look at a leaf, in between those veins, it kind of like has a little bump. So if you have these, you know, lighter kind of sections to it, that's going to make it look like, you know, it dips in, it pops out. So you can certainly, again, steer that viewer into feeling the dimensional element of that leaf by just those light spots and those dark spots. And then of course you can tweak this as much as you want to. Oh, I got to get that, hit that little stem up top. Once you've got your leaves all nice and highlighted, of course, I will probably, you know, sit and fiddle with mine some more. Like, I think I want some more orange over here, maybe a little more yellow over here. So you can certainly fiddle with yours all you want. We are going to be utilizing our small brush for the next step. So I'm gonna probably, you know, play with mine because I'm digging. You can see as I'm doing this, I'm just kind of adding a little bit more of the autumn feel to it. And then when I feel like I am all done getting these to transition into their beautiful fall color, I'll probably step away, look at it from a distance. And then when I'm all done, I'm going to wash and dry my medium brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so we are on to the final step. This is the final step of every painting, which is to sign it. So I usually sign mine in the bottom left or the bottom right. I'm going to be using my small brush. I'm signing mine in the bottom left, and I think I'm going with green. So I'm going green oxide as my color of choice here for my signature. I do my initials, but you could certainly use your first name or the date or a symbol or whatever you'd like is totally fine. And that is going to conclude this painting. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you painted yourself a very beautiful seasonal image, and I look forward to painting and sipping with you again sometime.